What's up, bestie? You're listening to the Coffee with Your Besties podcast. We are your host, Alexis.
And I'm Nicole. Welcome to the show, friend.
We drop new episodes every Tuesday sharing our advice, experiences, and what it's like to be a solo entrepreneur.
Are you looking for your new besties who just get it? Well, here we are. We are ready to share so many fun things with you and bring on exciting guests along the way.
If you like what you hear, make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss a thing. Grab your coffee, grab your bestie, and let's dive right in.
What's up, besties? Thanks for being here with us today.
Welcome back to the podcast. Cheers, friends.
Cheers.
Okay, today's episode is all about storytelling versus posing. What does it mean to be a documentary-styled wedding photographer? I think we throw that term around a lot in the industry, and I think let's talk about what it means and how can you get better at approaching sessions as a storyteller, as a director, if you will, versus just like pose, click, okay, bye. Unless that's your vibe, then skip this episode because it's not for you.
No, I think it's, the photography industry has truly changed with styles and what's trending, what's not. But I think what's always going to stay in trend, is telling that couple's story.
Yep.
Even if it's not a couple, maybe you're just capturing someone's lifestyle or they're graduating from something. You're still like telling their story of their accomplishments. And, it's kind of like you're a director, right?
You really are, yeah.
You're kind of directing this scene where you're like, okay, what's next? And you're telling the story for them.
You are, yeah.
And I think it's just so fun because I love how like the photography industry is now with styles and trends. And it's like, there's so many different styles and that's okay. But I think what's always going to stay in trend is the storytelling, for sure.
I agree. And I think it's so much more than just like showing up. I think when you do more work on the back end of like getting to know the people you're working with, that's how you can connect with them and tell their story in an authentic and real and candid and all of the words we love to say way. But I think a lot of people don't do the work beforehand, and they kind of show up and they're like, well, my client's awkward, or like, I don't really know. And it's like, well, that's your job as the photographer to figure out as much as you can about the people you're working with so that on their engagement session or wedding day, you can look at everything and know what's important to them and what they love and, what they're looking forward to about this shoot or about the wedding. And like, you can capture it in a way for them that when they look back on their gallery, they're like, oh my gosh, it feels exactly how it felt the day we got there. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this. I think there's nothing wrong to like with posing your clients, especially if you've never worked with them before or this is their first time getting professional photos done. Some people are just a little bit more camera shy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you can still learn as much about them as possible to where when you show up, you're like, okay, so I know you brought your favorite bottle of whiskey, and I know you really like seltzers, and so you brought your favorites, and like, let's whip those out, have a drink if that's their thing, or whatever it is. Like, you can just personalize it so much. It's so much more than going to a pretty field and taking pretty photos.
No, it's true. It's getting to know the couple and their story first before you even whip out that camera. And also just chatting with them before too, and just asking them their favorite things. I love asking to like kind of their personalities a little bit too, because usually you'll know right away like when a couple's more shy, but like together they probably talk all the time, and so some couples that you meet are more outgoing, and so sometimes you can do more of the fun poses like right away, and it's kind of less, I say posing, but it's kind of just less of that and being more like a director where you're kind of giving them a prompt, right? But we'll kind of dive into that a little bit more. But
no, I like it. Okay, so we have like broken down like different ways to pose your clients. So there's like a big category in the photography space, like editorial wedding photography. What does that look like? What does it mean? To me, editorial photography is very posed. It's very proper. It's very kind of like, I want to say classic, but in a very like sharp way, if that makes sense. That's editorial to me is very like Vogue almost, where it's not, you're not going to get super creative necessarily, but it is very like, you'll see these photos for years and years and years and years, like they'll never go out of style to me.
Yeah. And I do love this type of style as well. But yes, you're probably getting more of like where you're looking more at the camera. It's very, like Vogue, I would say, where they're kind of just in this cool like pose and a little more stiff looking. But I feel like when I'm photographing a wedding day or an engagement session, I like a little bit of both.
Absolutely.
Of course, like your moms, your grandmas are going to want the photos of them both looking at your camera. And so I like to get a variety. But I also can just tell like how joyful like clients, couples can be when we're, you know, they're lifting each other up. They're running at each other. Like, I just feel like there's so much joy in that. And a lot of men will be like, I hate photos, you know?
Yeah.
And I hear a lot like after our sessions, because I know you've said this too, that the guys are just like, that was so much fun, you know?
That's the best compliment, because the women normally are like on board for the whole thing. It's normally the men that you're working on being like, all right, it's gonna be okay, Jeremy, like we're gonna get through it. But yeah, no, I agree with you. So that's like that's its own whole category. So if you're looking into like more editorial post stuff, think of things and draw inspiration from like magazines and like a bunch of wedding magazines and look on like covers and things like that, because that's where you're gonna find, I feel like, a little bit more of that like editorial style. But I agree with you, and I think it's important to like read your couple. Obviously, if you don't advertise yourself as an editorial style photographer where you are very sharp and posed and crisp, then you're probably not going to attract those clients anyway. But every once in a while, there might be a client that's like, hey, I do want a few shots that are a little bit more staged with our bridal party or whatever. Then make sure you're up to the task and do some research and, you know, make sure you're communicating with them on that. But I think it's okay to be fluid in the industry. I don't think you have to be just editorial or just storytelling or just whatever. Like, you can be whatever you want to be.
No, exactly.
I like to approach each wedding day and each session just like as people, because everyone's differently. So while it might be my style to be like movement and blurry and running and things, if that's not their vibe, I have to pivot. That's my job.
And I feel like couples definitely make it known like what they like. Usually it's a good mix of both. And so and that goes along with all communication before the wedding day, just hearing them out and what they want. Because, if you're doing all candid, you know, a lot of blurry photos and they don't like that, it's like, oh, okay, you know, they might not be happy clients. So it's just kind of understanding what clients you booked and what they kind of envision for their day.
I feel like the blurry photo trend is getting so much hate in the industry right now because I don't know who's under the impression that photographers are literally delivering 100%
a full
blurry galleries. I hope not. Like, I honest to God hope not. Because like, you need some structure in a gallery. I love the blurry and out of focus and different and creative shots, because that's where we get to shine and have fun as artists. But like, I don't know. I just feel
we're
like
not delivering a whole gallery.
And I feel like
blurry.
So many vendors are talking about like how they hate the trend, and I'm like, it's a few photos sprinkled in your gallery. It's not your entire gallery. But
the people that are complaining aren't photographers. They don't know what's being fully delivered to clients, so they just complain about.
They see like 10 images, and they're like, oh my God, that's all she does. And it's like, I
never
can
booking
promise
you.
It's not all she does.
So funny.
Anyway, super funny. Okay, so then Nicole and I kind of talked about this, like prompting and directing. So what are prompts? How do we use them, like in a session?
So for example, I use a lot of like, okay, I want you guys to stand on like separate sides, basically run to each other like you just haven't seen each other for 6 months at an airport. Like, that's just kind of a prompt of like, no, like, you're not saying, oh, you have to run exactly like this, lift her up exactly like this. You
throw your head back exactly like this.
It's kind of just leaving it open to where, okay, how would you guys react if you, you know, you're missing each other. You haven't seen each other for 6 months. You're greeting each other at the airport or wherever. It's kind of like their interpretation of like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Like,
well, and it leaves
I'm going to pick her up or something.
And it leaves room for them to interact naturally, like how they would react versus like, there's nothing wrong. And I do it from time to time where I'll show a client a photo and I'll be like, okay, pose like this. Or like, let's try this. But I always then try to like, make it their own and have them like settle into it by being like, how does that feel? Do you feel awkward? Do you feel stiff? Okay, then you're not going to like the photo. That's just how it always goes. So I agree. I think it's fun to do posing and like, or prompting versus posing. And I think that just comes from like getting creative. And we've all heard the one where it's like whisper in her ear and tell her like all the secret little things and make her giggle. As funny as it sounds and as maybe repetitive as it feels, that truly is like, that's prompting. Like, it's getting them to not feel like they're stuck in a position, and they have the flexibility to like play with it, you know, and be creative and like settle into it that feels comfortable for them. And so kind of the opposite of editorial would be more prompting and storytelling vibes, where it's like not everything is crystal clear and in focus all the time. It's like some things are crooked, some things are out of focus, and that's like kind of painting the bigger picture of what their session looked like. So just diving more into be like, what does it mean to be a documentary style photographer? I think it kind of goes without saying, when you are a photographer, you are documenting things. That's what we do. So if to truly like settle into this role, and this is something I've been working on the last 6 months or so, is just like, how can I approach each day, each session like it's its own little mini movie. Like this is a rom-com and they are the stars. Like, and I'm just behind the scenes being like, how can I make it make sense from start of the session to end of the session without any gaps?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's so smart. I love that. That's like your way of just telling their story, like you're the director, and I think that's so true. Like you're documenting what they're doing together, and once you deliver that gallery, it's just like that finishing piece of that they can look at for years and years to come. And so really we're documenting couples' wedding days, most important days, engagements, and I think it's like so cool that we get that opportunity to do that.
I agree.
I forgot what I was gonna say.
No, that's okay. I will just say, like, I think going into your session with kind of an idea of how you want things to flow based off of them. So let's say like they love the city, they moved from New York, now they live in Boise, and they're settling into like a smaller town vibe, but for them it's still city vibes, you know. And so I wouldn't take a couple like that and be like, let's go to Stanley. I would be like, okay, cool, we're gonna find like, what do you guys like? Do you like sushi? Do you like breweries? Do you like coffee? Like what's your vibe? Let's start there. And this is like your first date. Like, where are your favorite places to go in the area? And just getting personal with it, because it's so easy to fall into the trap of like, we see people shooting at cool places and I'm like, well, I want to shoot there, and you know, and like I want to recreate that. But it's like finding the connection is when like everything falls into place. And when you post those photos or when you share those photos, it's like people feel it because you took the time to set up, you know, the vision, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's like I would never take a couple that doesn't like the mountains or doesn't like to hike to Stanley or McCall to the mountains. And so it's kind of that initial start of like, when you get that inquiry and you book this couple, maybe it's just for engagements, maybe it's for their full wedding day and you include engagement sessions. You just want to have that communication with them, like, okay, hey, like, what are some of your favorite spots? Maybe they like the sand dunes, maybe they have a favorite coffee shop in the city, you know? And so it's learning more about them, and that's how you are able to tell their story, is by getting to know them more. And I feel like when a couple, it like fits them more, you can just tell.
You can. Yeah. And like they love certain elements of where you're going, capture those, even if they're not in the photo necessarily. Like that, it's the cohesiveness and all the details that tell the bigger picture, tell the story. And so just get creative and like don't feel afraid to step outside the box, because that's what they're hiring you to do. Nicole and I talk about this all the time. I'm like, I don't know why sometimes I feel so like, well, they want me because they see this pose or this whatever, so I have to recreate that version of it for them. But it's like, that's not true at all, because they're not the same couple.
Well, and I feel like sometimes like we have to reteach ourselves, like, okay, not every single session has to be the same list of posing. I feel like we're very just like, we go down kind of this list of what we want, and I definitely have my favorite like poses,
of course,
prompts, of course, because not every couple is going to be super like outgoing and interactive with each other. Sometimes they're going to be, you know, feel awkward or say that they're awkward. And so it's kind of our job to make them feel less awkward. And make them just like breathe and calm, like be calm.
Slow
and
down.
just, because it's like when we get to a session, we don't even have to pull out our cameras right away. We can take a minute to chat with them. You know, maybe they brought alcohol and they want to drink a little bit.
That's my favorite thing. I like encourage all my couples. I'm like, are you guys drinkers? Okay, well, if this is your first time ever doing professional photos, bring your favorite drinks and let's start the session like that, because you're already going to feel more comfortable with me if you're just having a beer or taking a shot or whatever it is. And you're like, oh, okay, wow, this girl's cool. Like, she's not like, this isn't like professional. I feel like some people feel like that. They're like, I have to be all, and it's like, no, you don't.
We are professional photographers, but we're so chill at the same time.
Exactly. For sure.
Okay,
so how can we make sessions feel like, what can we do to provide a better experience of like that storytelling aspect in sessions, I guess?
So I love playing music. I feel like music plays a big part in it. honestly, like I will ask a couple like before our session and be like, hey, what do you guys, what kind of music you like? Sometimes I'll ask them the day of right there. Usually they'll be like country or like no country, you know? So I have so many playlists already on my Spotify,
I like
pretty
it.
much ready. So I'm just like, okay, we'll play this one,
I like it.
But I just feel like music sets the tone. It gets kind of like, when you hear like that awkward silence and you're like, you get nervous, you know, music fills that in, you know?
Does.
And I feel like when we both do sessions, like we've shot together so much, we're just like talking.
Yeah.
And I feel like to make the couple more comfortable, you're just encouraging them, giving them affirmations because it's intimidating. Like we've both been in front of the camera too, and we're like, do I look okay? Are we doing good? And so that's what our couples are thinking, like, oh, we feel so awkward. Like, we hope we look okay. And you're just encouraging them. And
No, well, and that's what I was going to say is like everyone wants to feel like they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
And so if you're just silently behind
taking
the camera,
photos,
they're going to be like, okay, this lady hates us.
Yeah.
She thinks we're
They're
terrible.
like, I don't know what to do.
Because it's just natural to feel apprehensive. You're like, oh, okay, wait. Like you start closing in.
Well, and the amount of times that I've heard like my couples who have gotten photos taken before, they'll be like, oh, wow, we're so happy that you like direct and like prompt us.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
We've had it where we didn't at all. And I was like, I can't imagine how that went.
I know. I'm like, how?
Like, how
wow.
can you
Okay.
not, like,
I don't know.
pose or prompt at all.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either, but to each their own, you know?
Each their
Truly.
own, yeah.
Okay, so we say ask questions, find out more. Well, how we do that, or how I do that, and Nicole does it, I think, as well, is send out a questionnaire beforehand. So we both use HoneyBook, and I love how it's all integrated and it's easy. Or even if you're just gonna text it, if it's more casual. But like I have a pre-created questionnaire on HoneyBook that I'll send out like a week, 2 weeks before our session, depending on them and how much we've communicated up to that point. And I just gather information like on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you about this session? How comfortable do you feel about this? Like 1 being, oh my God, we're terrified and we really don't want to do it, but we're doing it because we feel like we have to. 10 being like, I'm so freaking pumped, I can't wait. Normally they fall somewhere in between there, obviously. And so it's kind of like asking the questions that spark like things that you can draw from. So like you said, ask about their personalities. How did they meet? Where did they meet? How long have they been together? What's the engagement story? Do they have pets? Do they have they lived here forever?
Do they want to bring their pets along? Yeah.
Just finding out as much as you can about them. So when you show up and you're like, oh my gosh, I love that you guys were high school sweethearts. I actually married my high school sweetheart.
Yeah.
So magical. You're already bonding and creating like that trust and all before the session even happens.
Yeah. They feel like and they're getting to know you as well.
When
because
you are vulnerable with them, they're able then to open up and be vulnerable with you.
Yeah.
And I think it's just asking like what they're into, and like stalking their Instagrams. Do they travel a lot? Is she super into poetry, or like does she post a lot of quote stuff? And
what's her favorite movie?
Draw that out of them, because then you can take it all and be like, okay, cool. So what if we sat down and you started the session with writing love letters? Like read them on your wedding day, maybe that would be super cute, or give them to each other the night before. Like let's start your engagement session like that, because maybe they're both very creative writer lover people. Like
I feel like it'd be so cool to document couples writing love letters for each other, or maybe they already wrote them before the session and they're reading them, you know. And I feel like we're taking photos so we can't always hear it, but we could even take some videos for them, a few.
Well, and they'll remember, like you know what I mean, the words
like
spoken.
Documenting like what if she starts crying? It's like okay, there's the emotion, it's rolling, you're the director,
exactly, it's
you're
rolling.
leading
it's
this.
Exactly. It's like, okay, scene 1.
Yes.
It's kind of how you have to approach it, because that's how you're gonna get like that ooey gooey, like oh, you can just feel it. That's how your photos come to life, is when you draw that out of your people. And this isn't like a copy paste. That's why it's storytelling, is that the couple that's writing the love letters isn't also the couple that's chugging beer on a mountaintop. Probably they're different people, and that's okay. It's different stories, like it's different rom-coms. So find out how you can like draw that out of your people. And I think it all starts from getting a good questionnaire, getting a good basis down of who are they, and bringing in as much of that as possible.
No, it's true. It's good to say like it's not copy and paste, because you know our couples aren't copy and paste. Like you want to provide the best absolute experience for each individual couple. You don't want it to be like, okay, well, I went to the same location last week and the week before. You know, you want to change it up. And
absolutely,
sometimes like I do get a lot of people who see my posts, my photos on Instagram, and they want that same exact location. And that's totally okay, because they love the mountains, you know. But maybe it's just creating like a different, you know, it's going to be a different story because it's for a different couple.
Absolutely.
And so it's just like valuing them, hearing their story, by sending out a questionnaire before and making it their own personal thing instead of just like someone else you did the week before, you know?
And I think if you explain to them, because I feel like some pushback I can hear in the back of my head from photographers is like, but like, why? Or like, what if they're annoyed that I'm like asking all these questions? Like, if they are, just explain your process to them. Like, hey, I send this because I want to know everything about you because I'm so excited to work with you.
Yeah.
And I want your session to feel like your session, not Rebecca and Daniel's session, but your session. Like, engagement photos are not like, they're not copy paste. I want it to feel like, tell me all the ooey gooey details. And I know it might be exhausting. So grab your favorite bottle of wine, or like go sit and have dinner and like answer these back and forth at like in a private table. Like, make it fun and be like, share as much as you want with me, because that's my job, is to document all of that. And how can I do it if I don't know it?
No, exactly.
Just explain your process if you're worried that they're going to be any type of apprehensive or like pushback on it, because they may be curious, like, why does this girl need to know everything? But then once you say that, they'll be like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be 20 questions long. It can be 5 to 10, you know, you just ask like kind of detailed questions and then you can expand once you're at the session.
Because once you start talking, more is going to pour out. So you're like, oh my gosh, wait, so you had no idea. Oh wait, you did have an idea. Okay, wait, tell me. Like, it's just going to naturally come out. Like, I think we're in the industry of serving people, and like, it's such a connection thing that as soon as we stop looking at it transactionally and we start looking at it like, how can we connect, and you know, all the big pieces, I think that's when magic happens. So just the more you can do that and apply it to your business, I guess.
Yeah, it's true. We kind of talked about like inspo of locations. So kind of like we said already, for locations, just communicating with them, see what they like best, what makes them happy, where did they have their first date? Maybe it's at a coffee shop local. You could go back there and start your session there, or end it there. Yeah. And just make it all about them, because that's how you're going to become a better storyteller. Yes. Also getting into props, you kind of already said like bring your favorite drinks. I know you said you encourage like your couples to bring your favorite drinks. Maybe it's not alcohol, maybe they have something else they like Coca-Cola. I've had like a couple bring pizza and Coca-Cola, and it was like just their little cute thing between them. Games too. They could bring a fun game that they like, a card game. Even if it's like a sunrise session, they could make breakfast together. There's so many things you can do.
And it's our job to truly, like, if you want to create the stuff we're talking about, you have to talk about it with your clients. And you have to be like, okay, I'm so excited for your engagement session. Have you started a mood board? Do you want to start one together? And based off of what I've heard about you and what you like, this is kind of what I'm picturing. And paint them a picture of what your dream session for them looks like. Yeah. And if they're like, okay, I love this, I don't really like that, like, create it together. Yeah. I think because I've done it in the past. Obviously, it's years of experience and I grow and we change. But I've done it before where I'm just like, okay, I'll see you at 5 o'clock. Here's the location and it's going to be great. And it is. And it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. And then I've done it where I'm like, okay, wait. So your family owns a cabin. That's where you've met and spent all your summers. Cool, let's go there. Yeah. Like, why? Who says we have to go in the fields in the mountains because that's what your friend did or that's what you see all over Instagram? Like, where do you want to go? Your engagement is your story.
To be like one location either. It can be multiple. Yes. And that's what's so nice about it is everyone's so different.
Yeah. And the more flexible you are, the more you're open to like, because obviously compensation is a huge thing and we're not saying give them 1 million free hours and things like that. But like for me, I have sessions where it's like a quick session. It's 1 hour. It's super easy. Like for the people who maybe aren't as like lovey-dovey and whatever, that's cool. That works. And then for my couples that do want more and they want it all, like I have a 2-hour extended engagement session where we go and we spend 2 hours together and we can go to like as many locations as we can fit in that time, change as much as you want. And we can make like a whole literal movie out of that day. Yeah. It's just, what do you want? And so I think get creative with your packages. It doesn't have to be like 1 hour standard fits all. Because that's what people do. Like get creative with that. Yeah.
No, it's true.
And it's so fun. I mean, oh my gosh, like ever since I started offering extended engagement sessions, I think I booked that more than anything else. And I was so nervous about offering it because it's double the price and it's like such a big investment. And I was like, who's going to pay for that? Yeah. But then when I got to do them and I gave myself the freedom of like time and I wasn't restricted and like in this bubble of like, well, you said you're only going to work for an hour, so only work for an hour. Yeah. Like, Oh my gosh, it's freeing.
But the
on our
amount of
end.
times that we go over the hour
Right.
too, because
Yeah.
by the time we get started, we're
Yeah.
chatting away.
Yeah.
It's almost 2 hours anyway.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like going back to pricing 101, our other episode
Yeah.
of like, make sure you're getting paid for
Sure.
what you're working for. But even I know we talk a lot about couples and weddings and things like that. Even if you're mainly a portrait photographer and you're doing a lot of seniors that are graduating, college graduates,
Yeah.
this kind of goes hand in hand with telling their story as
Exactly.
well. Maybe they have like a dog, a cat they want to bring along.
Yeah.
Maybe they play the guitar and they're going to bring a guitar. Like there's so many prompts and like props that you can bring
Yes.
into it to tell their story.
Yes.
So yeah, it kind of goes for
Just getting to know
every
your
type of
people.
photography.
Literally,
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah.
It is. You can take this concept and apply it to any part. Like, you know, because you'll still get the classics. Like obviously, if you look on our Instagrams, we still get the classic poses and you know what everyone loves. But then there is the aspect of like stepping outside of that and being like, okay, we got the ones that mom and dad want. We got the ones that you might use on an invite. But like, what is the fun stuff? What is like, those are the ones that you're excited to post on Instagram and you're like whatever about. Like that's where you get into the fun stuff. So anyway, just giving yourself the space to create, because I think we put ourselves in these boxes of like, well, I don't know, like now's not the time to get creative. And it's like, it is. So I'm bringing my own mindset. That's why I say it so much, because I am like that. I'll show up and be like, okay, I don't want to try weird things. They're going to think I'm a weirdo. And it's like, no, but that's what they want.
But it's like, even if they don't love it, it's like their whole gallery isn't going to be one pose or prompt.
No.
Like you're going to be mixing it up so
moving.
much that they're going to love that and they're going to have so much fun with it. Also, what I've been learning in the last couple of years is like a couple during your session, they don't always need to be all snuggled up together always.
No.
Like move around, have them chase each other, use your whole entire space. And I've just been trying to get better and better. You know, as I have more experience under my belt, I'm just trying to get more details of the couple and just really zone in and tell their story, because that just really like sets you apart too as a photographer.
And then when you say you're a documentary style photographer, it gives it a new meaning. It's like, oh, she really does, you know, because anyone's documenting things. Obviously, we're taking pictures, but it means more when you give it like more attention and you really like lean into that creative process.
So it all goes back to communication with your clients and learning more about them. And I feel like every couple is so different and they have so many cool stories to tell. And I mean, even a good example, you had clients last year that were both pilots.
Oh, yeah.
And so, of course, you started your session
at an airstrip. We went to McCall.
Yep. And so it's just like that was storytelling because that's what they do for their jobs. That's maybe how they met. So I feel like that's a good example of
it is,
deep diving into their jobs and what they do and how they met. Like that just is a good example of that.
No, I agree. Yeah. It's just fun. It's fun to get creative and fun to approach sessions like this and just be excited because each one is different, because I know that cycle of burnout where it feels like, oh my God, okay, I'm doing the same thing over and over. Well, who's going to stop that? Only you, because they have no idea that you just did this and then they just did that. No one knows. So you just have to allow yourself to get out of that cycle and try new things and ask more questions and dig into that and like draw inspiration from things like music we were talking about. I literally had a whole styled shoot that I did based off of one Zach Bryan song. I was like, I'm so obsessed with it. I can see it in my head. I just want to recreate this. So I drove up to Stanley with a couple and I said, let's go. Like, this is what I've been picturing. And I think it's fun when you allow yourself to do that and then take what you learned or whatever from that session and then apply it to your clients that are paying you and be like, okay, how can I get creative for you? And how can we make this so fun and different and, you know, whatever. So I could talk about this forever because it's just so exciting to be, to tell a story.
No, I love it. And it's like a couple will have like their favorite song, maybe like they dance to it. And it's like, okay, ask them, okay, what's your guys' song? Because right when you start playing it, they'll just like melt and like have the best freaking time. Like I had the other Stanley session that you came along with me and they loved Zach Bryan too. And so I was like, hey, what if you guys were just like scrolling and you had it on your phones like they were playing it and I just like took a photo of them like playing the song and it was just like such a fun moment because they just loved Zach Bryan. And so and now with the feature, I know you don't always love that feature on Instagram, but you can like add the song on your post, which I was scrolling through this girl's feed earlier today and I just love her work. It's like that Sadie Robb photo or something. I can't remember exactly, but she's like such a good storytelling photographer, and she like has her song above it on her post, and it just goes so well with the photos. Like I was like, this is exactly what I envisioned. User experience. Yeah.
It is really nice. I think for me, it just catches me off guard a lot.
Well, my phone's always somewhat louder.
Same.
And then
like
I'll be
my
in a quiet room.
Up. Yes. And then I'm like, whoops.
Like, oops, sorry.
That's the only time I don't like it. But no, I do agree. And I think, just literally it's so magical tying into like all the elements. Like maybe you watch your favorite rom-com the night before your session, and you draw inspiration from that, and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, like I have it just, you get so creative. So give yourself the time and the space to approach each session with that creativity and get out of the box and just tell their story.
Another way to get kind of creative too is to watch music videos. Look up your favorite artist. Look up someone who like inspires you as an artist.
Why is the only music video in my head Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus right now?
No.
I'm like, draw inspiration from it.
Inspiration.
It's the only one that popped in my head.
Mine's Love Story by Taylor Swift.
Okay, see, cute. I don't know why my head went Wrecking Ball.
I literally looked at the venue that she did that
music video
at, and I was like, it's in or somewhere in Tennessee, and I'm like, I want to go there.
Recreate it. Absolutely.
Or if Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus inspires you,
you know,
there's some other music videos out there.
But Nicole makes a good point. Drawing inspiration from music videos, books, whatever your vibe is, whatever your jam is. Yeah. So anyway, hopefully this was super helpful and just gave you the, I guess, permission to like use it and be it and do all the creative things that you want to do.
I don't know what I was trying to say. Experiment with yourself and just kind of like see what you are able to do. Like maybe you have a couple friends that you want to take photos of, and you're kind of like, okay, let's go out in a field. Maybe it's to a new location that you just found.
Maybe it's a different time of day. Like you're like, let's do midday.
I want to do that more because
that's what I did with low light. I was like, let's just go at nighttime. What would happen? What would happen if my ISO was at 10,000?
Yeah.
Let's see. Because I'd never do that.
Well, and if you're not getting paid for a shoot, you don't feel like, okay, this has to absolutely
come out perfect.
Yeah. But I feel like where I ask a couple to model for me, I'm fully just in my creative zone. Those are my favorite photos. And I'm like, why are we like that?
Because we think we can't be that way.
We have to be in like a box
and
for
we
our
don't.
Couples,
no,
and we don't.
No, no.
Because I'm like, what's the worst thing? Like, I've been told like years ago, it was a family session. I told like the family or the couple, I might have just been taking their individual photos. I wanted them to sit on the ground, right? He said no. He was like, no, I will not sit. And I was like, all right, cool. So you know what's the worst?
I'd be like, what's wrong?
What's the worst thing that can happen? Someone tells you no, you move on to the next pose, prompt, whatever you want to do. But most couples won't say no to you.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I'm just a big like vision board person. I like to send it beforehand sometimes if I'm like really interacting with the client and the couple and they like want to know what I'm thinking. And I'm like, what are you feeling initially looking at this? And if they're like, yep, that's what we want. Or if they're like, yeah, you can tell, like you can read people, like, and
you're like, how do we do that? Or,
and I'm like, yeah, cool. Not your vibe. Let's pick something else.
Like,
what do you like to do?
Lift her up above your shoulder.
Right. Throw her over. I always say like Santa. I'm like, throw her over your shoulder like Santa.
They're like, oh, this is our workout class today.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm like, all my couples, they leave and they're like, I didn't know. I shouldn't have went to the gym this morning. And I was like, oh, whoops. Yep. No. Because we're running, we're jumping, we're doing all the things.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is Storytelling 101 and just our advice and opinions and ideas.
Yeah. And we hope you encourage you guys to step out of your box. Because I know we always need to.
Absolutely.
And we're going to this weekend because we have a trip.
Excited.
And we're just doing some fun styled shoots on the coast. And so we're really excited to step out of our comfort zone and just explore and use the whole
space.
Scene, the whole space.
Exactly.
So
I think that's the best part is like getting me to like pushing myself to be like, okay, so you saw it from this angle, but what would happen if you went over there?
Yeah.
Or what would happen if you opened a window?
Yeah.
Or what would happen if you tried something you've never tried before? Oh, magic. Cool. Because, you know, we get so
like don't be stuck in the same position.
No.
Not like get down, get lower, shoot
exactly.
up, get the sky.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So
anyway, we love you guys. Thank you so much for listening, besties.
Yay. Thank you guys. See ya.